Welcome everybody, Steve here. I just got finished building these slip-on casters for my plant table that I built a couple years ago. This table here, in case you want to see how I built the table, it's way back in the video somewhere. But I've got such a large plant on my table that I just can't move it. So the only solution to that, put some casters on it. And it just makes the moving the table so much easier now. Now I can move the table to clean whenever that happens. But anyway, it's a good little solution, and if you're interested in seeing how I built it, stay tuned. Alright, you just saw me cutting up all these blanks. So what I'm doing is I'm using 2" by 1/8, and I made a prototype right here. Now the reason I made a prototype, if you watch my videos, you know that I don't want to just weld all these up, go over to my my little table and find out that the thing doesn't fit. So I made sure that this was going to fit, and it does. It actually fits really, really good. If it didn't, if it was exactly 2.5, what I would do is shim this a little bit underneath. You can do that with masking tape. Just run a couple strips of masking tape and it'll expand it out a little bit, and then it's going to fit. But don't embarrass yourself. Go out and weld everything up and then go home and then they don't work. You have to use them for another project. Okay, so then I've got this piece of 2.5" square tubing, the only piece I got left in the shop, and basically I just drew a line to give me some references. You just clamp everything together, make sure you're square, and then we're just going to tack it all together. That easy. Oh, we got to put a bottom in there too, and I'm looking at my material. It's going to have to be a little thicker than 1/8". I don't have any 2.5 by 8, but it doesn't really matter. It's just got to hold up your 2" caster. Okay, I'm going to tack this and then get them all tacked up, and then we'll start working on the bottoms. This is one of those projects I do in between times. I'm working on my '69 Bronco right now, the Bronco project, and when the filler is setting up, then I come over here and do a little bit of welding. Alright, let's get fired up. just welded up a little jig for myself. Now that's going to go in there like this. And then when I put my bottom on, it's going to give me a little 1/8 inch reveal on the bottom. I'll give you a close-up. And that'll give me somewhere to put my weld. If you're just nice and flush at the top, then your weld's going to be on the top, and then it won't be flush on the bottom. You might not see it, but I don't know, that's kind of shoddy. But if you're going to do this, you got to make sure that, you know, if your little tack is sticking up, you got to give it a little grind. Make sure she's nice and flat. Okay, so now you can see how my little jig's going to work. I just have it so that, okay, so the material I used here, I didn't mention this, but this is some 3/16 by 2.5. And that's what I had. You know, I'm not going to go out and buy some 1/8 inch because it doesn't really matter. So this little jig here basically goes right like that. Two of them. Okay, and then when I put my bottom in, then I've got my nice 1/8 inch reveal in here so I can put a weld in, and then that weld won't be on the outside. I know, but I'm going to get something a little bit nicer so I can weld this. I got an idea. I'm just going to clamp this in here. Just so I can kind of keep it in one spot there. Now, hopefully we're not too high. Let me take a look. Let's get this up for you a little bit. Now, what you want to do is, I would weld the bottom in first, simply because if you, you know, kind of hit this, because this is going to be hot weld, right? You could actually maybe warp this a little bit, and then life just gets a little bit more difficult, and then it's never going to fit. But if you put the bottom in, that's going to keep everything square, and you never have to worry. Just going to hold my finger down, put a tack, and then I'll start welding. Okay. Now what I'm going to do, so I welded it on 4 sides here. But I think what I'm going to do is weld it on 2 sides, make it a little easier. I know I have to cut my casters to make them fit inside of here. That's not a big deal. And it'll make it a little easier if I just weld on 2 sides. You know, that's what happens when you get all excited and you think, well, okay, now I got to redesign things to make life easier. That's not a big deal. So we'll set up these guys and just weld on 2 sides instead. Just have to make the bead a little bit bigger. Even if you put a tack on there, it's probably more than enough. But we'll weld her up good. Where's my other jig? Oh, fell on the floor. Everything's all ground up. I'm ready for the sandblaster now. And then of course, you know, these are going to go on here like this. Now, this works well because I'm just using a 2-inch caster, but let's say you wanted to go big, and because you've got a little heavier unit, like I've got wooden legs on my little workbench, and I don't know how I got away with 2-inch wheels, but that's about 40 years old and it still works. But if I wanted to go with a little bigger wheel, make life a little nicer, you could go with a stem. Thinking about this, you could just, you know, drill a hole in the middle, and then what I would do is weld a nut on the inside so that you've got a little bit of, so you can, you know, go up and down easy. And then all you have to do is on the bottom of your leg, just hollow out a spot so that nut would go, you know, fit in there, and also you need a little bit for your stem. Now in a situation like this, you wouldn't have to, you know, have a stem this long. You cut it off so you don't have to drill, you know, that far into your leg. Depending on your situation. I don't know how uneven things are in your world, but that would work. And then you would have a little bit bigger wheel. But in my case, just gonna stick with the 2-inch. So we're gonna sandblast these and then hit them with some muriatic acid to rust them up. Wonderful. So my sprayer gave up. So what I'm going to do, I want to get this splashed all over the place. I'm just going to dab it on with a rag for now until I get another sprayer. We want to get her going. What we'll do is just dab it. Woo! That stuff stinks. And we'll let Mother Nature take over. helps if it's a little bit more moist outside. So it could take a couple applications. I gotta turn around here. Holy cow, get the wind going the other way. And that's what it looks like with one application. We're going to give it a little shot of lacquer, just so that, you know, you're not going to get it on your fingers or seal it in there. One coat should do it. They're out in the sun, so it's going to dry pretty fast. So I just kind of had to cut off about 3/16 on the end of the caster, and then all I'm going to do is line it up in here, and I'm just going to put a little bit of a spot weld in there, and I'm done. You know, it's kind of a plug weld, I guess. You know, you're just going to weld and just bring it up a little bit. It doesn't take very much to hold these on. I did this one here, and there's just a couple little spots. It's not like, you know, you're welding all over the place. Doesn't take much to hold them up. Okay, let's get at her. Now it's a little bit of a pain putting these on because everything wants to come off. Well, she's slipping right in here. Make sure this side's good. Yeah, it's all good now. Okay, well that was a little tougher than I thought. I could have taken away some of this little bit of extra weight here, but you know, I can pick this up. It's not that big of a deal. But if I was going to do it again, I'd put a screw in here. And that's not out of the, you know, realm of possibilities, because if I wanted to move this thing somewhere, let's say I want to take it downstairs, then I'd want to pick it up. And if you do that, then the feet are just going to fall off, or the casters are just going to fall off and be a bit of a pain. So, I think if I am going to move it, I am going to put a screw, but I'll put it on the back side, like just on the inside. I think that'll work out great. But I'm really happy. It's doing what I wanted to do. So I know this is just one of those little jobs that's a bit of a pain. You know, you got to find time for it, but it's solving a problem, and if you can just do the little things to solve all the little problems, then life's just got to get better. I hope that, you know, these casters do that. But anyway, I'm happy. And, you know, they do match up to what I did with all the rest on the rest of it. And, you know, if your table, you can paint them the same color as this, doesn't really matter. Okay, I think we're done. I'm going to put my plat back on here and put this thing back to work. So until next time, thanks for watching. Stay tuned.